Welcome, and gather around the fission battery, and make sure you huddle in close, because tonight I will be telling you the tale of the laser rifle, that brick of the wastes that turned poster child for the power armor wearing factions. The AER-9 laser rifle is a workhorse of both worlds, the old and the new. A sturdy rifle using new age components to let it survive the ravages of the nuclear war. But the AER-9 was an old workhorse by the time the invasion of China was started. It was a standard issue energy weapon where it could be supplied and maintained. As opposed to the newer AER-12s, the 9 was meant to survive the harsh Alaskan crossing. And unlike the civilian weapons, the AER-9 used crystal arrays to focus its laser after an emitter, making it more potent. And using titanium to house those crystal rays instead of gold, compared to the AER-12, left it with a slower fire rate and less impactful lasers, but it could survive much more hostile environs. It also meant the alignment was rarely upset by the slightest jarring motion, unlike those previously mentioned AER-12s. Now, in order to make the beams in phase, as well as service sufficient technobabble, these rifles feature a wave particle diverter. They were cased in carbon fiber housing, which was another point in durability. These diverters were crucial to the function of the laser rifle, as a damaged or broken diverter completely junks the gun, but also tip off who made them. General Atomics International developed these diverters and the AER-9 rifle, with the possibility that other companies picked up on making the prototype models. In fact, rumor speaks of an AER-914, a cutting-edge rifle being made by Vault-Tec scientists and left in vaults across the country. That brings us to the question of where were they? Now, much like the AEP-7, the AER-9 was nowhere to be found shortly after the Great War, and perhaps the Brotherhood might be to blame for this. Now, as to why it exploded afterwards, it could be the explosion of the Poseidon oil rig, which caused a flood of military gear into the NCR, or perhaps the actions of the Eastern Brotherhood, with trade convoys going cross-country. The first AER-9s also showed up in the Capital Wasteland, according to the tales of the Chosen One and the Vault Dweller. But it could also be that they were manufactured on the East Coast before the Great War, and everyone knows the Commonwealth is full of these rifles. Before these events, the most common laser rifle in the wastes was the Watts 2000 laser rifle, a companion to their Watts 1000 laser pistol, and obviously made by Watts Electronics. They seem to have a healthy civilian market share, with many of their known products having some use in military markets as well. The Watts 2000 rifle differs from the AR series of weapons in that it shared a frame with the DKS 501 sniper rifle and shares the same purpose. It was almost exclusively used for sniping. Assuming it used laser diodes like the Watts 1000, then it lacked the punch of military rifles, but with more space given to a collimator, the beam could maintain coherency over a much longer distance. For this reason, it's the Watts 2000 that has a story in Future Weapons Today magazine, specifically the ones found in the Mojave Wastelands, about a story for a marine sniper in Nanjing, China. Now, that is to say, the AER-9 is not built for sniping, but instead serves as a great CQB weapon, firing somewhat fast but maintaining accuracy enough to take some far shots, with very high confidence. The fact that in the state of its creation it features amazing versatility means that the AER-9 outlived its predecessors in successors simply by its reliability and simplicity. Even with the limited access in the Mojave, allegedly, the laser rifle features several pre-made modifications for it. Not quite what they did in the Commonwealth, but still quite big. Much like the laser pistol, the laser rifle hasn't had a damage change in the transition from Fallout 3 to New Vegas, which of course means that it is weaker than several guns, only being more powerful than some 5.56mm weapons. In fact, it sits right in the middle of that range with a damage of 22, making it feel at home with other early game rifles. It features a modest fire rate of 3.1 shots per second, which is also in the middle for semi-auto rifles in the entirety of the gun category. The DPS, however, is on the low end, at 67.8 damage per second. With each microfusion cell loaded into the harness, the laser rifle can fire 24 times, and it only takes a short 2.5 seconds to do it each time. With the slow firing speed, it sustains its damage for a long time after the first reload, which takes about 10 seconds to do. It has a DPS of 51.3. This is not too surprising given the laser rifle does occupy a beginner's role in energy weapons. But given the extra armor piercing of basically all microfusion cells, it does do well against armor. In VATS, it's a fine performer, costing 18 AP, only 3 more than the laser pistol, and has an efficiency of 1.2 damage per AP. Much like other laser weapons, the beam travels instantaneously and is exceptionally accurate. With a spread of only 0.025, only the sniper group of long arms have a chance of competing with this, and this is just the standard rifle. And luckily, like all lasers, this gun sports an above average crit chance, with a multiplier of 1.5 times for double damage. This means, like the others, you can expect those crits and those meltdown deaths more frequently. Finally, to the iron sights. With the mods I use, my energy weapons tend to have a very visually interesting sight, but sadly the base game has no iron sights for the laser rifle, just like the pistol, meaning you only benefit from a quite powerful zoom effect, but no sight picture. Luckily, there is a mod that improves this quite a bit. Now, the laser rifle sits in the middle of laser weapons in terms of requirements. It isn't as complicated as an RCW, and it is easy to be able to use with just tagging during character creation. At only a 25 energy weapon requirement, the laser rifle is very easy to pick up, and with a strength requirement of 3, it can be handled by the weediest and nerdiest of couriers. Price-wise, the laser rifle has dropped massively from its value in the DC Wasteland, given the maximum price range and minimum price range has increased massively. The laser rifle is comparatively cheap at only 800 caps, but with 3 mods it can definitely balloon in price. 2 of them actually cost more than the rifle, and especially if you pick this weapon off the body of an enemy, they will seem like a massive investment. Now, the cheapest and most interesting mod is the laser rifle beam splitter. This does what it seems to imply, split the beam, all for only 650 caps. Now, each beam factors in the spread separately, which means the rifle loses some long-range punch, but with no recoil and a good spread value, you can usually rely on both beams hitting at that mid-range. Each beam will now do 65% normal damage, meaning a 30% damage increase if both lasers hit. Since they are resolved separately, that means heavy armor is more of an issue, but combining overcharge or max charge ammo with critical hits mean that they can overcome since the crit damage can be applied to each beam. For the cost of this mod, it is one of the bests. Now, the next one more than doubles the price of the laser rifle, costing 900 caps, and it's the laser rifle focus optics. This comes with a nice new red case on the laser rifle, which is really the best part. The actual mechanical change is a slight damage increase by 3 points. And sadly, this only applies 1.5 to each beam when combined with the beam splitter. This sadly makes the mod less marketable, but it does make your laser weapon stand out. At least visually, maybe not damage-wise. On another note, the last and most expensive mod is another purely optional one. Costing 950 caps, you can outfit your laser rifle with a powerful 3.5 times scope. This scope is quite good looking, even if it is very blocky and covers up some of your screen when attached. It fits the aesthetic of the rifle quite well, but it will hamper close combat performance, and it sadly does not have a pinpoint sight reticule as some gun skill scopes do. Now, for those not keeping track, the laser rifle mod total at 2,400 caps, 3 times the cost of a fully repaired original rifle. Sadly, the durability is lacking for that investment. At only 731 bulk rounds, 620 standard, 412 overcharged, and a pitiful 245 max charged rounds, This gun requires having Raoul as a companion, and especially his advanced companion perk, as if you want to keep this as your main weapon, you'll be going through other laser rifles or repair kits in short order. Now, microfusion cells perform similarly to all the other usual standard ammo, as it's just another way to store 1040.8 volt DC power needed for these energy weapons. However, it is the most expensive form of it. The standard ammo costs 3 caps per round, but it does still give you the -2 DT you expect from energy ammo at this point. Overcharge ammo costs 5 caps per round and can be made for 3 standard for 2 overcharge. This requires more money to start than using small energy cells to make money, but it is the same profit margin. The overcharge MFCs do 25% more damage and reduce enemy DT by 5, but shorten the gun's life 50% faster. The max charge ammo costs 5 caps per round as well, but takes 5 standard for 2 max charge ammo. They increase the damage by 50% and reduce enemy DT by 10, which makes it quite capable of killing in-game enemies. Now, this does reduce the life of the rifle by 2.5 times, making it only for those fights you know the odds of before you start them. Bulk ammo is the last type, and costs 100 caps for a box of 100, making it the cheapest way to feed your rifle, but it is the usual 85% damage and wear rate. Much like the small energy cells, siding with the Legion or Brotherhood can net you quite a lot of free ammo, although it is less than small energy cells once again. Apparently the Legion really like pistols. This weapon does have good news, however, for those that love uniques. As mentioned before, there are a few AER-14s out there in the wastes. They are cutting-edge weapons from right before the Great War. And one of them happened to make its way to Vault 22. In the depths of that plant-infested bunker, you can find this prototype rifle in a stairwell. Whoever used it failed to free themselves from this lush tomb, but their failure is your gain. It could be that it comes with a few small energy cells, which are not the ones that this rifle uses. But also, this rifle shows a development nature to it. Apparently, no one bothered to make it look nicer in the decades before the disaster that took over the vault, as it features a lot of the open control circuits and wires on its side. As expected, the AR-14 is fragile but does loads of damage. Firstly, it's 35 damage per shot, more than a fully modded laser rifle, and shoots the same 3 shots per second, giving it a fine DPS of 105. The crit multiplier is boosted to 2 times, which with maxed out crit chance can get as high as 95% of the time, but for most players it can get around 50% with some focus into that. Each crit does an additional 35 damage, which is about as much damage as a double crit from the modded rifle. In VATS, it costs 20 AP and has the same efficiency as the modded rifle at 1.8. It also is marginally more accurate with a spread of 0.0225. Now, the bad stuff. It takes 2 MFCs to fire for the added damage, and it is very fragile. 584 bulk shots, 495 standard shots, 329 overcharge shots, and only 195 max charge shots. Sadly, this weapon doesn't punch equal to plasma weapons, which come later, but for laser weapons, it can punch through armor better than any laser in the game. Sadly, with max charge, that isn't as needed with some other weapons, as an RCW with max charge ammo can put out a very similar amount of fire. It also weighs half a unit more than the standard laser rifle for some reason. Aesthetically, it features some of those circuit boards and an orange trim with a bright green beam. It definitely looks unique, even if it doesn't feel much better than a modded laser rifle. As for the base laser rifle, it is actually fairly common, mostly on the body of fiends and the dead bodies of Bright Brotherhood members. There's also the Dead Brotherhood patrol that are around the Mojave, and there is one on a wastelander near the Good Luck trailer park next to Nipton. Additionally, if you hang out in Nipton more than a half a second, you can find one in the Tinkerer's house, and you can also find one in the hotel rooms in Prim. As for merchants, Knight Torres, the Silver Rush, Quartermaster Barden, and the Vindertron can all carry them. All in all, explore enough and you can find one without having to waste a single cap on them. Now, the laser rifle is not a strong weapon, and it is not an extravagant weapon, but it is a solid weapon. With the associated perks and weapon mods, the laser rifle can be a surprisingly effective weapon. The versatility of its ammo, great accuracy, and cheap VATS cost all make a weapon that can usually tackle any enemy in the waste, but will obviously struggle against the Death Claws and other fast movers, or the ones that are super small. It should be noted that while it is a good weapon, it is still a beginner's weapon, and shouldn't be treated as the answer to every encounter.